Hello and welcome to my most recent presentation, all about getting messy in your human design experiment. If it's your first time finding me, well, welcome to my channel. And if you're coming back for more, then super glad to have you on board. This is a topic that is once again near and dear to my heart and something that I've been forced to get even more intimate with lately in my own deconditioning process. And I don't know, it's just something that I really wanted to talk about and bring to you in my own way. So although I am a certified living your design guide, I'm a fifth line. I'm a 5-1, and I'm bound to bring things up that are controversial. So there are certain things in today's video that may push some buttons. It may be a little bit controversial, and also in true fifth line style, a little bit ironic. So, I just want to put a little disclaimer that this is just stuff that I'm bringing to the table from my own journey, my own perspective, my own contemplations, and really from my own design and my own conditioning. So, I always say, take what resonates, leave the rest. I'm not here to be the be all end all authority. After all, that is meant to be you. Just here to kind of maybe stimulate some ideas, like who knows, like whatever it's going to bring up for you. Maybe it's going to just catalyze some interesting contemplations for you in your own experiment, wherever you are on that journey. So I do have kind of more detailed introductions in other videos, but just briefly, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Melanie Halpert. I'm a 5-1 quad right splenic projector on the left angle cross squishes. And my main job all these years, since 2008 anyways, I've been a certified body talk practitioner. And I've actually been in the field of holistic health for 2 decades now. 2001 is when I first got into the field. And so I've had my own practice now for about 13 years. And I am a certified living your design guide, human design analyst in training, and officially now 4 years into my experiment and deconditioning process. So the first thing here that I want to kind of bring back around, if you're not already aware of this in terms of a human design experiment, is that simple as it is, and I mean, it is relatively simple, it is not easy. And we happen to be living in a time where the quick fix, everything is about the quick fix, instant gratification. And with everything we've been going through collectively as well, with the lockdowns and just globally, there are more and more behaviors that are being reinforced where it's all about that quick fix. And like anything else, human design can be really, really exciting mind candy. But there is a huge difference between learning human design, learning about human design, studying human design, being a human design professional, and actually living your design, actually walking the talk, actually going through the deconditioning process. So it can be really kind of glamorous in certain ways, like, ooh, like, is this the end of the road for me? Is this the end of my seeking and searching for whatever it is that's going to fix my life? But the truth is that the actual deconditioning process can be very unglamorous, and there can be a lot of things that can be put very squarely in your face to deal with, that can be really, really uncomfortable. And, like with anything, it's so easy too that once there's like a crack that begins to show, it's like, throw the baby out with the bathwater. But like any process that truly is has the potential to be rewarding in the end, it really is by sticking with it. Obviously, if correct, but to this whole thing is not about instant gratification. It's really not. And it's only something that is going to reveal, it layers and layers over time. So depending on where you've come into human design, there are some teachers and some sources that don't really mention this, but certainly if you're going the traditional route with the International Human Design School and certified teachers and analysts, like, you're often going to hear about something called shattering. And this is something that is often talked about kind of at the beginning of one's experiment, when you first get into your experiment. But what I'm really starting to observe in my own process anyways, is that the shattering happens in layers. It could happen in layers, it could happen in waves, it could happen in bursts, it could happen, but there's like different stages of shattering that can happen. And it's just so fascinating to see this. And you could see I've kind of put a little Venn diagram here with these intersecting circles and with this shattering right down the middle. And actually, if you look at the slide, you can see that there's actually this shattered glass that is kind of the background on the image. And this is really just to illustrate that what is, quote unquote, simple is this experimenting with your design. So experimenting with your design is meant to be empirical, logical, practical, formulaic. Basically it's like, here, something that is offered to you that is very step by step. It's just like, here you go, play with this. And that really is the beauty of human design, is that it is not a belief system, and it is not meant to be a belief system. It is meant to give you something to experiment with, to see what is or is not true for you, because you are meant to be your authority, not anyone, including Ra Uruhu himself, who is the original messenger of this system. But you can see that, although that in itself is somewhat simple and straightforward, the actual deconditioning process is not easy. It's messy, it's unglamorous, but it's also revelatory and cathartic. If you're actually observing, if you're actually paying attention, and if you are, there's these nuances. And this is why I wrote too, that there are many fine lines. So, and actually I see that there is a typo here, which I will correct with you live as I record this. So there are many fine lines. And that actually is my most favorite thing in this whole thing, is to observe the fine lines, to observe the nuances, to observe the gray area amongst, all of it. So the premise of human design is the science of differentiation. It really is all about the experience of living in a very homogenized program where everybody is conditioned to think the same, believe the same, have the same values, beliefs, opinions, and all of that, strive towards the same goals, when in fact, each of us is unique. We each have a very unique makeup. We have the potential anyways, for a unique differentiated perspective. And ultimately, the bottom line of human design is all about decision-making, healthy decision-making. And I have this quote, I included this quote by Ra about life being built on one decision at a time. So he said, it is simple what we do. It is a simple truth that life is built one decision at a time. It is the only way your life is built. It is built on one decision at a time. And the secret is to make the decision as yourself and not to make the decision because of what you should or could or might or would be. That's all. And so this is profound. I mean, it really is profound. And anybody who has been, experimenting with their design, learning about human design, you see how true this is. And two of my all-time favorite movies. There's one. It's an international film, a German film. I think it was from around 1998, called Run Lola Run, which is very fast-paced, kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. But it really illustrates how true it is that every single decision, every single thing that occurs affects everything else, and how one thing that is different may yield a completely different result. And it's the same thing with Sliding Doors, a film with Gwyneth Paltrow, that kind of shows these two very different, like life unfoldings based on certain sequencing of events. So this is something that when I encountered human design, and I had in my past really enjoyed films of that nature, it really got me to appreciate that premise of one decision at a time. And I got really intrigued in wanting to know how to make healthy decisions for myself. So the thing that I'm going to bring up that is, somewhat controversial and ironic, like I said, true fifth line style as a 5/1. Fives are the heretics, and oftentimes calling things out that could be status quo. And irony is one of our big themes. And so 4 years into my experiment, right now, like, there has been something that has really been put squarely in my face that is creating this major new layer of shattering. And this involves really observing the difference, okay, between an organic versus a conditioned approach to strategy. Seeing where the mind can latch on to strategy itself as a mental decision in an attempt to engineer an outcome of correctness. So this might be something that you need to kind of like come back to and sit with. And the whole thing is that, we hear all the time, like, the thing that's really drilled in with human design, it's like everything is about strategy and authority, needing to be aligned to strategy and authority. Now, don't get me wrong. As a projector myself, I have seen enormous value and enormous success, which is my signature, in waiting for recognition and invitation, which is my strategy. So I am not saying this strategy is bad, but what I'm saying is that there have been things that have been brought to my awareness recently where I have seen that there are different ways in which I have approached strategy in my own process. That there are times when my approach has been really organic and it has yielded a certain result. And then there have been times where actually it has been more of an engineered thing, where the mind has said, well, no, you must do this. If you want to get that, if you want to have success, whether it's in this thing, whether it's in this interaction, whether it's in whatever, then you have to do this. And I started to really see that with my own openness. You can see this is my own body graph. I've got an undefined ajna. So I'm not here to be rigid in the way that I think, in the way that I'm, with concepts. I'm here to be fluid. I mean, I am definitely here to be wise about whose certainty has value, but at the same time, I'm not here to be mentally rigid myself. And so it's been really brought to my attention recently how mentally rigid I had become about strategy. I mean, that's one of the things that has really been brought up. And of course, then looking at the other open centers, the tendency to be overzealous as a projector, not knowing when enough is enough with the open sacral, with the undefined ego, having to prove and improve. And if only I get better, better at living my design then. So there's all of these things that it's like, as you go through the deconditioning process, you see that even the things that were kind of given to you as training wheels can then actually start to imprison you. So, the mind is always busy telling us that if we do this or that, or if we don't do this or that, we will achieve a specific outcome, right? I mean, any of you who've been reading anything about human design, learning anything about human design, that's what is really brought up. I mean, big time is all about the mind. But in a way, okay, and this is also kind of like maybe a controversial statement, but in a way, so does human design. Human design says, well, if you live according to strategy and authority, then this will be the outcome. It's not saying that you have to do it. I mean, it is obviously offering it to you as a possibility to experiment with. But I think that, like, this is one of the big points that I'm driving home, is that fine line between playing with something, experimenting with something, versus being very dogmatic and rigid. And it's a totally different energy. It's a totally different energy. So while organic alignment to strategy and authority does encourage and reveal the beauty of one's signature, I recognize that my mind has found a way to hijack the concept, and that when operating from that space, it creates resistance in practice, even when in theory, I'm quote unquote doing everything right. So this is something major that I wanted to bring to the table, because we will be talking about resistance, and sometimes it could be, if you're a generator or a manifesting generator, maybe it's like freaking frustrating. You're like, but I'm doing everything right. Why is this still happening? If you're a projector, maybe feeling really bitter about something. If you're a manifester, maybe you're, seething in anger. If you're a reflector, maybe super disappointed. It's like you are going through those motions. You are following the formula on paper, and yet there's just like something that doesn't add up. And so what I'm bringing to the table here is that, from what space are you coming from? Are you coming from an organic space, or is this something that you are kind of imposing as a rule so that you can achieve that outcome of peace, of satisfaction, of success, of surprise? So, this is very juicy stuff. And especially if you have an undefined ajna. I'm not really speaking here to those with a defined mind, and I'm not here to prove my point, but I'm bringing kind of like a flexible concept here to the table, and to take a look, especially those of you who have openness, mental openness. Have you been mentally rigid about strategy and authority, or about strategy really, because that's what I want to focus on here. And has that, what has that done? What is the effect that has had on your experiences? So some of you who, I don't know if I've talked about it in other presentations, but people who know me, like clients, and just in conversations with my colleagues, something that I have said, I know that I've talked about it in podcasts, but I've got this kind of slogan, that authority is non-negotiable, while strategy is a guideline. Again, I know this might create a lot of waves. People might get their feathers ruffled about this. And again, this is just my own perspective about it. It's not about, going against anything, or it's just that I've seen that in terms of decision making, authority is authority is authority. And even there, okay, I know that there are some people in the community that are very focused on cognition. And I actually really feel that cognition and authority go hand in hand. I know that there are also a lot of nuances, whether your authority is fully unconscious, fully conscious, half conscious, it's like there's so many different configurations. But of course, we are the quantum of our design and our personality. And, we each have either an inner authority or a personal process of authority, which is something that we can absolutely rely upon infallibly to make correct decisions for ourselves. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that authority is actually, crucial and independent of strategy. This is something that I'm seeing, especially as a projector who is, not always in the midst of receiving an invitation, or, sometimes decision-making doesn't involve others. And I feel like, well, for all of us, not all of our decision-making involves others. And like, what is it that you actually tune into to make healthy decisions for yourself that goes above and beyond your strategy? So this is really what I meant by authority being non-negotiable and strategy is a guideline. Your authority, if you're an emotional being, you know that time is your friend. And same thing for mental projectors who need to discuss, and lunar beings who are designed to wait out a lunar cycle to make a decision. It's like, these are things that, tried, tested, true. You start to really observe almost like the solidity of either your inner authority or your personal process of authority. And it's not a one size fits all. And this is something that I will keep on just like reiterating, because there is so much in our society that tells everybody to follow their gut, that tells everybody to follow their heart. When we're not, we are different. And even those of us who have the same type of authority, I'm a splenic being. I have a lot of splenic colleagues, friends, clients, but we have different configurations. My spleen is connected to my chi and connected to my throat, which is entirely different than somebody who would have their splenic center connected to their root or connected to the ego, or whatever the configuration. So it really is also learning the exact nuances and way in which your authority operates in your being. And for sure, I would encourage you, if you have yet to learn about your advanced chart, to understand your cognition and to start observing ways in which your cognition, mine is feeling, for example, and I'm also a splenic projector with a completely unconscious authority defining channel. So for me, it's all about, it's all body based, ultimately for all of us, it's about being aligned to the body, aligned to the form. But there's a powerful synergy between my splenic awareness and my feeling cognition. So that's all I'm saying. And this might be complete, like, what is she even saying? If you're not there, that's okay. But if this is speaking to you, then it's just an invitation to kind of look at that a little bit more and see, like, what is true for you in terms of what it is that you can solidly trust within yourself to make healthy decisions. So getting more into this whole, messy in your experiment. So what's fascinating, I don't know how broadly this is discussed, but in certain circles anyways, it talks about how generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors, their strategy is mechanical. And it's like literally like the laws of gravity, where, if you follow this formula, then, these are kind of like the ingredients that you need for the unfolding to occur in this fashion. So basically to avoid resistance, to have ease instead of encountering resistance. For manifestors, it's a bit different, because for them, their strategy is not mechanical. They don't have to do anything for anything, but it's more political than anything. It's really to give them that freedom of movement, that is so important to them so that they can have that peace. It's just a way of being courteous to the people in their impact field so that they can go about doing whatever it is. At the same time, it's not something that can be imposed on them, which is another huge lesson that I've been learning in my own process. So ultimately, either way, whether mechanical or political, strategy is really meant to support one's auric frequency and alignment. So most of us, other than manifestors, in some way, we are either like responsive beings, or there's like something that needs to kind of occur for the magic to unlock for us. And we each have different auric frequencies. The manifestor has a very closed and repelling aura. The generators and the manifesting generators have a very open and enveloping aura. The projector's aura is focused and absorbing, and the reflector's aura is sampling and resistant. So strategy is really meant to support one's auric frequency and also correct alignment. So for your trajectory, we all have a trajectory, we all have a path, we all have a geometry, we all have sights and things to see on the path in our own movie. That being said, okay, rigidity with strategy, is it correct? Is it truly correct? Or is it conditioned? I'm talking about the rigidity itself. And some beings are kind of like by design meant to be rigid. Others, it's a very conditioned thing. I mean, you can see rigidity in the design, both in terms of certain aspects of definition, but also certainly in some aspects of openness. So when there is rigidity with strategy, is that rigidity correct? Or is that rigidity conditioned? Is it, is your approach to strategy organic, or is it engineered because you are trying to achieve a certain outcome? I mean, obviously, we all want ease, we all want flow, we all want to eliminate that resistance. But how does this rigidity with strategy affect that? So what I've discovered is that the mind can actually hijack human design concepts. It can get hung up on the correctness of strategy, and it can actually use it to try to control either ourselves or other people. And so this is another thing that I've been really seeing in my own experiment. And again, the whole thing about the fine lines, like it's super, super fascinating, because those of you who know about motivation, my motivation is desire, the trajectory, leader to follower. And so it's really all about, I mean, Melanie's personality is really designed to be like on fire, really like lit up about a way that is splenically correct. And at the same time, I also have an undefined ashna. And I'm also here to wait for recognition and invitation, and like how easy it is as a projector too, to get super overzealous. And then, like there really are these fine lines between actual correctness and conditioning. And so I've seen myself as well, how the mind has hijacked human design concepts, and how in this getting hung up on the correctness, I myself have sometimes misstepped, overextended myself, and it has been actually used to, intentionally or not, to control self or others. And at the end of the day, human design is supposed to be free of dogma, free of dogma. There are people who look at human design and they can see, because it's something that when you get into it, it's like, it's so freaking cool what it opens up for you. But at the same time, it's super easy to get really sucked into it in a way where you've got blinders on. And it makes it very difficult to relate to anybody who is not on the same path. And it's really easy, like there's a lot of snobbery. It's like, oh, that person is not self. Oh, that person is not self. And granted, while they may not be operating like with the same set of guidelines or whatever, we still need to operate in the world. I mean, it is a choice, right? And you can decide to sequester yourself off and only talk to people who are into human design. That's a choice. But like, how are you able to embody human design in a way that is free of dogma, where you're actually embodying it for you as yourself, not imposing it on anyone else, not even imposing it on yourself, but just experimenting with it. And yes, being your own authority, you being your own authority, not saying that this, this person or this teacher or this guru or this whatever is the authority, but through curiosity, fun, experimentation, really seeing, like this is really the only way to learn what is true for you. And the only way is to not be afraid of coloring outside of the lines. So there can be a lot of fear, like, well, what's going to happen to me? Like, if I don't follow this strategy, there's no deity in the sky that's going to strike you dead. The world will not stop turning. And obviously in human design, there's a huge thing about third lines. People who have a third line profile, they're here to learn through trial and error. There's no such thing as making a mistake. It's all part of their pioneering and discovery and innovation. But on some level, no matter whether or not you have a third line, human design, the experiment, it does require, coloring outside the lines and some trial and error. You can play it safe. You can play it totally safe, but in playing it totally safe, are you actually having a legitimate broad spectrum experience, or are you being very controlling and rigid in this attempt to control and engineer the outcome? So, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Resistance will always be your greatest teacher and ally. So I've created another video. I'm going to see if I can try to kind of like embed it somewhere here if you haven't seen it yet. But if not, if all else fails, if you just go to my channel, then you will see that one of my videos, and it's a short video called Signposts of Resistance. I think it's something like Signposts of Resistance, Greatest Teacher and Ally, something to that effect. And it really is all about the way that resistance is meant to operate and what it is meant to show you. So that's the thing. It's like, you're going to see in your life, and sometimes resistance will arise through not honoring strategy and authority. But sometimes it can arise as a result of adhering to it too rigidly. Again, this is my own experience that I am bringing up, but it's something that I am bringing to the table for you to observe in your own life. And maybe it's not true for you, and that's okay as well. But I wanted to kind of create this visual for you here, because this is something that I talk about a lot with clients, and just even again with my colleagues and stuff, this whole resistance factor. And the analogy that I've come up with is, it's like the snap of an elastic band. So here you can see there's a picture of my hand with an elastic kind of pulled back like a slingshot, and there's kind of like a legend of levels here, like of severity in terms of resistance. Like, so there's either no snap, which is ease, where you basically either experience that peace, that satisfaction, that success, that surprise. It's like, ooh, like even, and this is really what I'm talking about here. It's like, sometimes you might color outside the lines. You might off-road a bit. You might try something different. And then you realize there's no snap. It's like you're expecting to literally put your fingers into an electrical socket. And it was like, it worked. But like, I didn't follow the formula. What happened there? I don't understand. And so I have experienced this For example, somewhere where I really was supposed to wait for recognition and invitation, but I didn't, because in that moment, organically, it felt correct to do that thing. What do you mean? Like, what do you mean there's no snap? What do you mean this person totally is embracing me and this is amazing and whatever? Well, this is what I want to illustrate and why it is so important to experiment and to not be afraid of experimenting and not get hung up on being super rigid. So there might be no snap. Maybe there's a little twinge, feeling a little bit of that frustration or feeling a little bitter or kind of angry about something, a little disappointed. Oof, maybe kind of stung, like you can really feel it. And then there's that, extreme level of seriously WTF, where you get really schooled by whatever it is that really shows you in a very, very clear way that, whatever action you either took or didn't took yielded whatever result. Just because it happened once also doesn't mean that it's going to happen every time like that. So that's why experimentation can really yield surprising results. So my question to you is, where have you been too rigid or have taken theory too literally and it has worked against you in practice? Or where have you off-roaded or pushed the envelope with theory and it has been rewarding in practice? So, if you'd like to, for sure, I welcome your comments. If it's something that you'd like to, actually publish in the comments under my video, or if you want to even just, talk about it in some way, that's there if you wanted to mention that. But this is really for yourself in your own process. Something you can see here, I've got this little microscope because this is what it's about. Obviously, for manifesting manifesting generators, it's all about you. So this is something that might be very natural to really look at it. For us projectors, we really are here for others. It can be helpful, though, in our own process, especially in the deconditioning process. Maybe there's somebody that you trust and know who can also help you see those blind spots. So depending on your design, this may be something that is more or less comfortable, more or less easy. It's not mandatory or anything, but at the same time, it's something that can be really beautiful because it can start to reveal to you that gray area, that not everything, especially in terms of strategy, is always black or white. So if you made it this far, thanks so much for watching. Hopefully what I have highlighted today is something that can be valuable to you in your own human design experiment. And, just even asking you, have you already had a reading? And are you ready to dive deeper into your experiment? Do you enjoy discovering or discussing fine lines and dilemmas that can exist between your definition and your openness? Are you finding it challenging to find balance between living your design authentically while interfacing with others who are on a different path? Would you like to find new ways of grounding theory into practice by way of interactive, catalytic exploration of your unique design? So if so, if these are things that really kind of light you up, one of my favorite things is really individualized custom coaching by design online. So no matter where you are in the world, I offer 60-minute or 90-minute sessions, whether some people need to talk more, some people need to talk less. I can do individual sessions. I also have packages available. So if you're curious about that, definitely you're welcome to send me an email, info@melaniehalpert.com. And yeah, this is definitely a journey. It can feel very alienating with people who don't understand what you're going through. And it can also be really incredible to connect and interface with somebody who does understand all of these different dimensions of what this personal process entails. So thanks again for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you again when the time is right for a new video. So until next time, be well and take care.